Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar discussing the role of apprenticeship and work-based learning in today's labor market. Before we get started, I just want to review a few housekeeping items. Throughout the presentation, we absolutely encourage you to type questions or comments using the chat panel in the bottom right corner of the GoToWebinar player. We will leave time at the end for some Q&A, so if you have any questions, be sure to type them in the chat box and we'll try to get as many of them answered as possible. We also ask that you take a short survey at the end of the webinar. Your feedback is very important to us, so please do take a moment to answer the questions in the survey. We have a really great panel joining us today, so without any further ado, I want to let them introduce themselves and take it away. Colin, I will go ahead and pass it off to you to kick us off.
Hi everyone, my name is Colin Gutman. I am the head of the Skilled Trades Division at Penn Foster. For those of you who don't know, Penn Foster is a 128-year-old educational institution that offers education to over 175,000 students presently. And within the skilled trades, we're in fact the largest related technical instruction provider in the country. We provide education to 5,000 people who are currently in apprenticeship programs with over 600 employers across the country. So we believe that we're kind of one of the leaders in understanding how to conduct an apprenticeship and how to marry hands-on training and work experience with education. And we do it as distance education because we really believe in wrapping the school around the student and trying to fit it into the lives of busy working adults rather than the other way around. So with that as the brief background on Penn Foster, I will let Eric introduce himself and then hand it off to Jennifer and Landon for brief introductions, and then we'll get started. Eric, go ahead.
Great, thank you, Colin. Good morning or good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Eric Seleznow. I'm a senior advisor at Jobs for the Future. JFF's a large national nonprofit that works at the intersection of education, employment, training, and workforce issues. We've been around for about the last 35 years, and we work in many states across the country. I direct our fairly new Center for Apprenticeship and Work-Based Learning. We've been launched since November of 17, actually a little bit before that. And we're a resource for the field of apprenticeship and work-based learning. And I'm looking forward to the call. My prior experience, I've worked in corrections reentry. I've worked at local and state workforce boards, did a stint at the U.S. Department of Labor, and have now landed with Jobs for the Future. So it's a pleasure to be here today.
Thanks so much, Eric. We appreciate having you here. I'm actually sitting in Shinola's beautiful Detroit headquarters with Jen Guarino right now. So Jen, go ahead and take it away.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us today. Happy to be joining this webinar. I'm here and eager to participate because I've spent the better part of the last 10 years dealing with workforce issues. I've been in the fashion industry for over 30 years. I've owned my own manufacturing facility, and I'm a VP of manufacturing here at Shinola. And I also am the founder of a group called the Makers Coalition that is about training industrial sewers. That has a apprenticeship program attached to it, and then I'm also involved with a initiative here in Detroit called ISAC, the Industrial Sewing and Innovation Center, which also has been envisioned to include apprenticeship. So I'm eager to be a part of this panel. Thank you.
Thanks, Jen. And Landon, why don't you go ahead?
My name is Landon Dooley. I'm CFO at Mae West Enterprise. We are electrical contractors out of Southwest Georgia, and we utilize Penn Foster for our education. And we do work as far west as New Mexico, as far north as Ohio, and go as far south as Florida. And we utilize Penn Foster with our apprenticeship program for the education. And I'm very happy to be on this panel today.
Brief overview and introduction. Great, thanks. So to kind of set the stage, I'll talk very briefly and then turn it over to the more interesting panelists that we have. Why are we here? Well, in today's labor market, we've seen this very fascinating trend that a very old concept might be the key to mitigating the talent shortages that pretty much everybody on the phone today is seeing in the market. Apprenticeship is certainly not new. It's been around at least since the 1800s, but it kind of, what's out is in again. And apprenticeship has now kind of been one of those things that's been dusted off, and people said, wait, it worked back in the older times when we had manufacturing skill shortages, electrical skill shortages, contractor skill shortages. Why not again today? So today we will look at how apprenticeship enables businesses to invest in their employees, invest in long-term success while filling short-term skill gap needs. We'll explore different approaches to upskilling by two leading employers. Mae West and Shinola are certainly different companies, different employee needs, different geographies, but both kind of taking similarly minded approaches in terms of being progressive leaders in workforce development, I would say, within their respective markets. And indeed, nationally, we'll gain an understanding of where apprenticeship is heading and how policies will impact in the future. And I think it'll be great to hear two employers and practitioners chatting with Eric, who has a bit of the national purview as to where, from a policy, national, and macro level standpoint, apprenticeship is headed. And we'll share best practices. We've got three people on the phone who probably know apprenticeship as well as anyone in the country. So I think that between them, there could be a lot of great things we can glean and a lot of, really strong lessons that hopefully we'll be able to take out of today's discussion. So continuing on, Lauren. I'll just start with what do we know? And that's that apprenticeship is good. Generally, studies have shown a high ROI in apprenticeship. They've shown it to be one of the only ways to help recruit and develop a highly skilled workforce. When you have these skill gaps, you can try to hopefully find people from without, which is a challenging maneuver, as those of us on the phone will be able to attest to. But apprenticeship, you can develop your own highly productive employees internally, improve your bottom line, reduce turnover costs, and increase retention, because graduates of an apprenticeship program have kind of grown up with the company's culture, company's way of doing things, and they are kind of a little bit more ingrained into the company from that perspective. So we're big fans of apprenticeship. We think it's a flexible training solution that meets local needs in a kind of national framework, and it's one of the key solutions to kind of the skills pipeline, skills gap issues that many employers in many industries across the country face today. So with that, I think we will turn it over to Jen to talk through Shinola Detroit and what she experiences, learns, et cetera here.
Thank you, Colin. So I come to this webinar with two very specific experiences in addressing labor shortage. So I used to own a company in Minnesota. It was a leather goods company, and we were growing at a rapid rate and really came up against a bottleneck of capacity because of a lack of skilled labor. And as we reached out to the larger community to find if they were facing the same thing, we found that indeed we were not the only ones. So we created something called the Makers Coalition and began to get to work on creating an industrial sewing program, a curriculum that was taught at a community college. Flash forward, when I came to Detroit, we started from scratch to build a leather goods facility here. So meaning that we were going to need industrial sewers. The same thing happened when we got here. It was really, really difficult to find skilled industrial sewers. So it was at that point that we got more serious about taking the curriculum that we had and getting certification from the Federal Department of Labor, which we finally got approval for September of last year. So we've done the same thing here, is reached out to the larger community. I should say that Shinola has successfully trained industrial sewers, and we are happy with our workforce now, but we really feel that we want to participate in helping others not to go through what we went through, which was a lot of time and money trying to train people on our own.
So this was obviously a reaction to the lack of talent around you, that you as a leading employer within Detroit are saying we can help fill this skills gap. To what extent do you think employers, large, small, medium-sized across the country, are waking up to and are deciding that, hey, education is no longer the job of the high school system, the community college system. We can't expect the education system on its own to produce exactly what we need, and businesses kind of take some of the onus on themselves responsibility-wise and financially to say apprenticeships, upskilling, this is an ecosystem we need to be a part of. We're not just in the handout jobs game.
That's a really great question. I think it varies a lot depending on the size and scale of an organization. The smaller you get, the more they feel they can't handle that burden on their own. As you get in larger companies, you will have groups that focus just on that. But in either case, I think that industry is realizing that you just don't run an ad and get the talent walking in the door. So to partner with educators in a way that at the very least the entry level skill is at a much higher point, so that the on-the-job training is not starting from square one. And I know for us, had we had everybody go through a related instruction, that would have saved us months of productivity, of scrapping product, as you just have to expect when you're training. That would have really helped us. And I we have a coalition of over 30 companies here in Detroit that are working together on this. I'm pretty comfortable saying that I can speak for everybody in that way. I think that the reason why we developed Isaac was because some of these companies are fearful of the paperwork, the record keeping, the reporting. And so Isaac is envisioned we're actually building a contract manufacturer for the sole purpose of having a channel to teach apprenticeship, so that we can be the pilot, we can be the pipeline for these companies. So by the time they leave Isaac, they're good to go. So we're hoping that we're delivering an answer to some of their concerns.
So Eric, I'd love to get your quick reaction to some of Jen's comments. Obviously, she's got a registered program. That's fantastic. She's bringing in a consortium. I think it's the way that JFF sees the world, as people working together to achieve common goals. I think Jen has clearly expressed that between the state, between the federal government, there's been different regulatory requirements, there's been different registration processes, and that a lot of different smaller businesses have feared the paperwork it takes, and they've come up with an innovative way to get around that and to kind of leverage scale to lower the overall burden in what seems to be a pretty effective way. I'm guessing these are concerns you hear all the time, and a really innovative way to kind of ameliorate those concerns and create the best outcome for everybody. I'd love your take on, what Shinola is doing, the challenges, the opportunities, et cetera.
Sure, and Shinola is a great story of growing your own workforce to meet your business needs, right? And also providing not only opportunities for the business to expand and grow and get the skilled labor they need, but also providing opportunities for the workers in their community, right? Really important, really excellent example of sort of a regional partnership. You heard the partners that Shinola uses and connects with, whether it's mayor's office, workforce folks, community college folks, sometimes community organizations. That's really at the heart of a lot of the modern day apprenticeship programs. And it's really important, right? We have a tightening labor market, right? Really tight labor market. Urban areas and rural areas a little bit different, but generally, unemployment rates are down. It's a tightening labor market. Employers are probably struggling more than ever for talent and getting people connected. And I think apprenticeship, particularly registered apprenticeship, is a great way to organize that. And it depends where you are in the country, and you make a good point, Colin, about, getting people on the pathways to apprenticeship, because not everybody's able and ready to walk for direct entry into registered programs in their communities. Some workforce organizations, community-based organizations, colleges might have to do pre-work, Penn Foster, et cetera, might have to do pre-work with people to get them up to the entry-level requirements of some of the existing programs out there. I would say apprenticeship in this country has been around for as long as this country's been around. George Washington was an apprentice. Ben Franklin was an apprenticeship. Elvis was an apprentice. Probably didn't know that. I just learned that. And so there's a long and rich history in this country of apprenticeship. And the last 100 years in this country, it's been largely in the building trades and a little bit manufacturing. They figured it out. They have an efficient system. They get the registration process. They've been doing it for a long time, and it's not onerous. And I would offer a friendly amendment to some of the comments. It's a difficult process to set up registered apprenticeship programs, but it's not impossible. It's been driven largely over the last 100 years, by building trades and some large organizations. But I have to tell you, and from my local work, there are plenty of small businesses who had onesies and twosies of apprenticeships in their shop, and they figured it out. And what the federal government and state governments have been trying to do the last few years is to try to get the resources out there to work with businesses to take some of the burden off them to create the apprenticeship program. So I don't know if the Office of Apprenticeship in Michigan helped you set up a program, but oftentimes there are state apprenticeship representatives and navigators that can help companies do that. And in some places, in many places, and it's growing every day, there's more workforce intermediaries who can help businesses craft the program and take some of the burden away from them by helping develop the standards, helping do the paperwork that Jen was talking about. And so there are groups out there that do that. Workforce boards, community colleges, industry associations. It's a lot of examples of intermediaries who help put apprenticeship programs together. While it's a challenge to put them together, it's a high quality program. A registered apprenticeship program is going to be the highest quality you can have. It has rigor, standards, and quality, and it has a quality control factor. And while sometimes that's a challenge for businesses to put them together, there should be some resources out there to help them do that. But you're not going to get a better training or an outcome, and I'm sure Shinola and other companies will attest to that. I think this is a testament to finding a need, thinking it through, getting the right partners around the table, and I commend them for the tenacity in getting it done. So I'll stop there and we'll continue, but I could talk about this all day if you want, Colin.
Yeah, Eric, there'd be nothing more fascinating. I think you were a little bit modest in your bio, that you were in fact the Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Department of Labor. So you in fact know this ecosystem probably as well as anyone else in the country. I guess my follow-up question would be, I think many people are nodding their heads on the phone saying, I get it, I want to do it, I think there should be a way to do it. Where do I get started? You just mentioned there's workforce intermediaries, community colleges, state, actors. And I think the question often is, I want to have an apprenticeship. Where do I get started? What would be your recommendation? Is it Google, whatever state you're in, Office of Apprenticeship, find a phone number and call that person? What would be, from your kind of seat, having seen the whole system, if you were to just offer the attendees on the phone how do I get started in one line cookbook? Where do they look? Who do they call? How do they go about doing it?
Right. Well, I'm sure Jen could probably tell you her story about that. But look, there are resources in all the states, and we do have sort of a bifurcated system. Some states are states that have state apprenticeship agencies that do that. I think it's 25 states. The other states are operated by the Federal Department of Labor, and they also have a group of staff and navigators who go out there. So it really depends what state you're in. But every state has been doing, over the last 4 or 5 years, has done an incredible job of doing outreach and providing more information. So it really depends who you are. If you're a business listening in, obviously your first step, you could talk to your local workforce people, maybe a local community college, because a lot more community colleges are doing apprenticeships, and in some places they are intermediaries and know exactly what to do and can help companies. But when in doubt, certainly you call your state apprenticeship agency or the Office of Apprenticeship within your state. All that stuff can be found online. I don't have it at my fingertips here, but there should be staff that can help you. And again, some states are better than others. But there are resources out there. You got to do a little searching to find it, but it shouldn't be too hard to either get connected to the state apprenticeship agency or the Office of Apprenticeship in your state. And again, you can Google all of that and get there. And also, I would check around for apprenticeship intermediaries in your area. Harper College outside Chicago has really helped Zurich Insurance Company put their program together. They did all the heavy lifting. They did all the paperwork. They worked with them on the curriculum and the standards and all of that. They did that. There's examples in College of the Canyons in Southern California, works with Goodwill on a partnership, and they're an intermediary for several industries. So, and they gladly welcome companies in and work with companies. So look in your community or look in your state to get started.
Thanks, Eric. I think that's a good, helpful get started. So now let's turn it over to Landon, who I think, we've worked with Penn Foster for a long time, supporting their apprenticeship program. They've had some exponential growth. They are all over a pretty wide swath of the country and in areas that are not necessarily skilled population centers. And they run a registered program. So Landon, I think it would be great for you to talk a little bit about your company, your program, the challenges you face, just generally being Mae West, and how you've overcome them, because it's a pretty fantastic story.
All right, thank you. Mae West, we're electrical contractors, and we specialize in medium voltage electrical work. And that's something that's not really taught in depth at our local technical schools around here. So that's why we felt the need to start our own apprenticeship program, so that we could go ahead and teach these guys, plus also give them the necessary skills of on-the-job training. Our program is a 4-year program. It consists of 88 books and 8,000 on-the-job training hours for the guys. And so we basically take, and each time we have an apprentice, they come in, or a laborer, and they have to work 6 months for us. And they have to get a recommendation from our superintendent that they feel that they would be a good candidate for our apprenticeship program. They come in, they interview for that position, for that spot, and if we feel that they have it, then we will assign them a mentor. And so each apprentice for us is assigned a mentor, but a mentor can only have 2 mentees. So that we don't overload them in any way. The mentor isn't overloaded, but has 2 people that they can oversee their progress. And so if our apprentices are having any trouble with books or understanding a concept or a theory, they can always go back to their mentor and ask for advice or help, or what does it mean. And we use Penn Foster through the online training because it offers us the flexibility that we need. Right now, we're all across the U.S., and so with that, our guys also have to be able to access this program, through an online methodology. And Penn Foster has a great one. A lot of our guys love that, and they've commended us for using Penn Foster in that way. But as far as who's enrolled in it, our apprentices, we have laborers that come to us. They start out as laborers. We also have some guys who've been machine operators, so they've worked a forklift or a backhoe for years, and they want to learn that skilled trade. And so they come to us, and we give them the training that they need, and they go through our apprenticeship program. And it's not just young guys coming straight out of high school. We've also got a few guys that are 50 that are learning their first skilled trade, that skill for their life, that have worked out well for us. Penn Foster, how we utilize the program is the first year for our apprentices is really foundational skills. It's some of the safety aspects. It's getting them to learn the math, the reading skills, how to take measurements, how certain tools are supposed to be used, and when they're supposed to be used. And that's what we use, is we start them out with the foundational skills before they start getting into the real technical aspect of our job. And so some of the best practices, some things that we use is not only assigning a mentor, but as far as the office staff goes, sometimes there can be a disconnect. And so what we've tried to do is we have our HR administrator. He helps out in reviewing everybody's work each week, and he does up a report for us. It lets us know exactly where the apprentices are. So we know if they're a book behind where they need to be, or if maybe they've got a work report that hasn't been submitted to us. And all a work report is it's a grade from the superintendent on that job saying to the apprentice, here's the great things that you did this month. Here's the things you need to work on. And it gives them a grade just so that they know exactly where they stand and where they need to go with the technical skills that they're getting. Then as a management group, we meet just about our apprenticeship. We meet each week and talk about it for 10 minutes or so, 15 minutes, and we talk about each person, how they're doing, and then we meet with the superintendents. We pass that information back to them saying, hey, they're one book behind on the Penn Foster program, or they really struggled on this book. Can you make sure that they really have this information down and have it going forward? Some of the benefits that we've had from this is we've had increased retention for our guys. Of those that have finished the program, 86% have hung around with us. So that's just a great thing. The picture that you guys see on the slideshow right now, that's our last graduation that we had. On the right is one of our owners, Mae West, and on the left is one of our apprentices. He's receiving two things. The first thing is the United States Department of Labor's certificate of completion for the apprenticeship, and just below that is the Penn Foster certificate that they receive. Every apprentice that graduates and becomes a journeyman electrician with us gets a framed photo like this, or framed certificates. We treat it just like as if they're getting a college degree. We take great pride in our apprenticeship. The guys who go through this program stick with us, and we want them to know that they're valuable to us. And so twice a year we have a safety meeting. We shut down every job. Everybody comes in. We do these graduation things. The apprentices are allowed to invite their family in to see them get this, because it is a huge dedication on their part to finish 4 years worth of schooling. But it's also a good commitment for us as well. And we really enjoy the apprenticeship. Just also having a registered apprenticeship, the one thing that I do want to say is if you have a registered apprenticeship, we have people come to us because they've searched out for registered apprenticeships through the DOL, and they've come to us saying, hey, we've heard you guys have a registered apprenticeship program, and they'll sit down, they'll talk to us, and we will, sometimes it involves them getting hired by us, and later on they get to go through the program. So overall, it's been a great success for us to have the apprenticeship program. Now that we've kind of worked out some of the kinks, it does take a little bit of time, but once you do know exactly what you need to do and what's required of you, and you put forth the time and effort that's needed to do it, you can have a great program.
Thanks so much, Landon. And just a quick reminder to everyone on the phone, if you do have questions, feel free to type them into the little chat box on the right. I saw a couple raised hands. We won't be kind of unmuting all the lines, but if you type it in the chat box, we'll get it. So Landon, I think you've touched on one thing that almost everybody I talk to nowadays brings up, which is that the traditional model was you go to high school, you go to college, then you start your career. And I think that model is changing for a variety of reasons. One, employers don't want to wait for someone to finish all of that before joining the workforce. But two, that's typically a fairly kind of expensive model. And usually, we heard it yesterday, a lot of people say, I just don't have the time to be a full-time student, the time and money, I need to work. So I'd love to hear you talk about your people and what they are like, how what you do fits into their lives in terms of they're working, they're bringing value to the company, they're earning a paycheck, and they're getting kind of education to invest in their lives. And that kind of earn while learn model versus school then work model is, I think, a very popular kind of vision of the future that a lot of employers, schools, everybody is really starting to embrace.
Yeah, what we do is we actually have we have 4 owners that are involved in our local high schools, and they go out there and they talk to the kids because a lot of times they don't know that they can go to programs such as our apprenticeship or things like that. They are being told, go to college and things of that nature. And that works for some people, but it doesn't always work for everybody. And so we've been able to just talk to them and we tell them about the opportunity. It is the apprenticeship is not cheap. I'll admit that it's $6,500, which is not as bad as going to college is, but it is a financial investment. And we tell the guys, if you want to go get in the apprenticeship program, for us at A West Enterprise, we actually will pay for it for you. But you do have to have a little skin in the game for our apprentices, and they pay $30 a week towards that program. And if they should decide that halfway through they want out, that's fine. We keep their money. But if they finish, we actually give them a check at their graduation for every single dollar that they've put in. They get it all right back. And we just say, we appreciate you, and we give it back to them as a bonus. But it helps us out on different jobs, though, just them going through the apprenticeship, because they're getting the knowledge that they need. And they're able to do higher level work each and every time. So when we go out to, some of the things that we can offer is certified pay. So we go out and we get government contracts sometimes, and we tell them, hey, your rate here in Albany is this, but since you're going out here to this job site way out in Ohio, they have certain rates that are different. And so since you're a second year apprentice, you get 70% of the pay that an electrician would get on that job. And we actually had one in Ohio. I think the certified rate was around $55 an hour. So they got 70% of that, which was much better than the market would be if they were here in Albany. So, and that's something that we can offer since we do work nationally or around the nation and all. So, but this program also works because since the guys are out of town, unfortunately they're at the houses with their mentors sometimes at night. And so the mentor can help remind them, about things. But you also have, when they're going on the job site, you've got apprentices who are learning things, and they're also able to contribute. And it's not like they're just a low-level employee. They have an active voice in what's going on. And we're actually in the process right now of building a training facility here in the office for so that we can have, if they want to come here and learn how to bench pipe and stuff like that, we'll have one day a month where they can come back up to the office and learn how to do other skills that'll help them throughout their career.
That's great. Eric, I know that you're probably very excited because Landon is emphasizing some of the really key aspects of registration. He's got contractors who are in remote places and jumping from job site to job site. And it's one of the reasons they choose Penn Foster, so that distance education can be a part of it, but also the portability aspect and the fact that the Department of Labor means that these contractors are kind of equally valued in Albany, Georgia, or Columbus, Ohio. Why don't you talk a little bit about how you see kind of organizations that are distributed or who work at scale, or contractors or something like that, and just talk a little bit about companies like A West and how you've seen this model fit all across the country.
Well, it's interesting, and Landon makes some outstanding points. That is probably true in every program, and it mostly that they're growing their own workforce to meet the skill needs of the company and then provide opportunities to workers. It's as simple as that. And look, apprenticeship is not the solution for every single workforce program or every single workforce problem. It can be for some, but I think we have two really good examples on the phone with particular and different needs. And I think they would probably both agree that, hey, there's a significant investment from the company up front. But there's a return on this investment for the company on the back end, right? So while it may cost, Landon or Shinola, a few $1,000s or more on the front end to get workers in. And again, when you're talking about registered apprenticeship, you're talking about 2,000 hours of paid on-the-job training a year, at least 144 hours of related technical instruction. Somebody has to cover those costs. And so there is that investment up front, but there's also return, right? In apprenticeship, the data is pretty compelling about job retention and workers sticking around after that, reducing churn for the company. And then some studies I've read talk about year one, you're not the company, it's all investment and sunk cost. But when you get to year 2 and year 3, as Landon was saying, those apprentices are really starting to add value, and they're starting to contribute. And under that supervision and under that mentoring model, by the time they complete his apprenticeship, which I think, Landon, you said was 4 years, I mean, you're getting a highly skilled quality employee that's going to hopefully stick with you for a while. So, I think it just meets such an incredible labor market need, and I think that's really smart. Now, and look, large companies can do this, small companies can do it. There's a couple of different ways to register, and I want to shift a little bit from registered apprenticeship, even though, Colin, I think that's the gold standard and the way to go. But, applied learning works, right? I mean, we know that on-the-job training works. You talked earlier about, the linear pathway of high school to college to work is just not cutting it every day, right? Too much debt, too many distractions in life. Students and workers are bouncing around in the labor market a lot. So there's more than one pathway to the middle class, right? It doesn't have to be the linear thing of high school to college to work. And so there's many different alternatives to do that. And apprenticeship is just one of them. One of the challenges, I think, in this country is what the definition of apprenticeship is. And people think different things when you say apprenticeship. Most people think apprenticeship are union programs only in the building trades. Well, that's been true for the history of this country, but it's not true today. There are apprenticeship programs in healthcare, in IT, in cyber, as well as the traditional occupations. But there's much more modern apprenticeship system going on. And if you're going to register, you can register at the state level, or you can register at the national level. And if you're a national company like Mae West is, it makes sense to register nationally, so you can apply that program across the states. You can register at the federal level and the state level, so you can take advantage of some state opportunities. But a lot of people have a misunderstanding about what apprenticeship is. I've been to places across the country where they say, oh, we got an apprenticeship program, and it's a high school student doing 4 hours a week, an internship. Well, that's not really an apprenticeship program. So it's really important that people understand what apprenticeships are. And there's sort of registered apprenticeships, then there's non-registered apprenticeships, which can still be high quality, but they're not approved by either the federal or state government. There's no guarantee of quality or equal access or wage progression. The registration gets you a high quality product, I think, is close to what the Europeans have. So there's a lot of different ways to skin the cat, but I think we'd all agree that applied learning works, right? On-the-job learning works. These companies get to train them, and I'm sure Landon trains his folks in safety and basic work skills and the harder skill technical requirements of the job. And I'm sure Shinola does something similar. So it's really a great way to customize what they're doing for it. It takes a little effort to think it through. Hopefully you'll find people at the state or the federal level who will work with you to do that. There's opportunities where small companies come together, as part of a sector partnership or part of an industry association. There's a manufacturing industry association in Middle New York who, has organized their different manufacturing companies to come together and do apprenticeship programs. So there's lots of really good examples. Apprenticeships, and I mean registered ones, are starting to happen in high schools across the country, right? Our average age of an apprentice in the U.S. is 29 years old. In Europe, it's 17. They have a different model that focuses on getting high school people on this career pathway. And there are high quality apprenticeship programs registered that do that now in several states. It's emerging and growing. But there's also a significant focus on pre-apprenticeship work, which is getting people up to the entry level requirements. So, in Albany, there may be, a group of folks that are interested in doing this, but they don't have a driver's license, or they don't have their high school diploma, or they don't meet the math test that they have to take before they get in, or whatever. But there should be resources in the community that are preparing people for those entry level requirements of that particular program. So there's lots of different options around there, but I think suffice it to say that, work-based learning work, the company investment pays off over a couple of years. And again, as I said earlier, it's good for workers in that community. And there's a lot of ways to feed into that. It's not the solution for everything, but it's a daggone solution for the companies that use it.
Eric, you literally just mentioned the question that we just received from the audience, and it's a topic I know we talk about. It's a topic near and dear to a lot of hearts, pre-apprenticeship. So I'm going to kick it first back to Landon and then bring Jen in here. Our question was, how, as an adult education administrator, how can we best prepare our participants to be ready for an apprenticeship? So Landon and Jen, you guys run fairly sophisticated businesses, very sophisticated businesses. Just tell me, before someone comes in, what would you love to have from them? What would you need to have? You know, what's the must-haves and the love-to-haves? Where someone stands out and you say, yes, I'm more inclined to bring you into this program. Hard skills, soft skills, whatever it might be. Landon, let's start with you and then we'll go to Jen here.
Well, for our program, we only allow people in who have a high school diploma. So we want to know that they have at least the high school level skills to completed so that they have that education. And then from there, we like them to at least have a little bit of experience in the construction industry. It helps, one of the questions we always ask is, well, have you ever used, a forklift before? Have you ever used a backhoe or an excavator, things like that? And those are simple training things that can be taught. If you go to rent one from Sunbelt, or you can actually Sunbelt Rentals or United Rentals or whoever your local equipment operator, equipment rental store is, they can get you certified on something pretty quick. And so if you have something as simple as that helps you out in letting us know that you at least have some of the training and that you're teachable.
Great, Jen.
Well, I would say that in Detroit, we've got a challenge in that our education system here is really flawed. And so we have a large community here that, may have graduated from high school, but still needs pretty serious remedial education. So we're working with another social organization here, Focus Hope, to tailor make pre-apprenticeship preparation. Everything from reading, math skills, workplace practices, very simple things. They work on something called the 4 A's, and it covers attendance, it covers attitude, aptitude, it covers all those things. So for us, we like to see that someone's been through some sort of program like that has really prepared them to be in a professional environment. And so for us, that's number one. It's hard when you have someone that you've hired that hasn't been through something like that. And I'll give you a real life example. We had someone who came in, was working on the line and was really excelling, doing great. Great attitude, great attendance, great dexterity. And so we offered to put them in computer training so that we could get them upskilled into maybe possibly a new position. Well, they had never even typed on a keyboard, So those aren't things that you expect. They're things that you come across that surprise you and make you realize just how important it is not to assume, but to make sure that there is some preparedness.
It's great, thank you. So unfortunately, I think our answer is there is no one answer to what a good pre-apprenticeship program looks like.
Well, there's indications, Colin. Excuse me for interrupting. I mean, you saw in my picture when we first started out, I have a lot of gray hair. I've been around a long time. The workforce highway is littered with some really questionable pre-apprenticeship programs that were nothing more than trying to get somebody a GED and giving them a few hours of contextual learning. And I would say that's changed a lot and needs to continue to change. And so I think Jen just gave a really interesting example. Focus Hope is a great program. I know those guys, they do a great job. But my advice to anybody listening on pre-apprenticeship is to understand in your community the existing registered programs, get to know them, what their entry-level requirements are, and then crafting a pre-apprenticeship program that can get people there, that can get them that high school diploma. Some of them require a driver's license. If they don't have a driver's license, that's not, they're going to have to get a driver's license, right? Some require a drug test that they're going to have to pass a drug test. Some require algebra right? Some require, different programs require different things. So once you figure out what those entry level requirements are, you can then craft some sort of pathway to that. For some folks, it may be just a few things they need. For some folks, it may be a lengthy period of pre-apprenticeship work to get them there.
So I think we will wrap up now with the quick send off on the last slide that we have written an ebook. It's phenomenal in my opinion. It's got a really great handsome author, if I do say so myself, and it has a foreword written by a very knowledgeable and lovely person as well. Two of us being on the phone here. It's much more tactical, I would say. It's a little bit of, if you're thinking where to start, you're going to have some of those conversations. Maybe read this too. It's a little bit of a distillation of best practices, a little bit of a step-by-step, and it tries to be a tactical guide to what the different components to setting up an apprenticeship are. So just a little something we have that we've written that we thought was helpful. With that, I would like to really thank Jen, Landon, and Eric for their time. Obviously, leaders within the apprenticeship world and within their respective industries, and thank everybody for their attendance. And with that, I'll say to all of you, have a great day, and thanks for coming.